You're probably aware of the recent Buckingham Palace racism furore. Charity boss Ngozi Fulani was invited to the palace, and Susan Hussey, who's an 83-year-old employee of the palace, asked her where she's from quite a few times. It was a bit awkward. Ngozi called it prolonged racist abuse. Prince William agreed, and Lady Hussey was forced to resign. Was it actually racist though? Ngozi turned up to the palace dressed like a Carry-On film version of the Jungle Book. She had a lion's tooth necklace, dreadlocks, beads, and more leopard print than a Liverpool hen do. Obviously, anyone meeting her would assume that her heritage is important to her, as she's proudly wearing it on her body. Despite her heritage being on full display, 83-year-old Susan Hussey is apparently the most racist person in the world for asking about it. This is laughable. Hussey's questions were polite, if a bit persistent. The rude person in the conversation is the person being deliberately obtuse and denying their African Caribbean heritage. Can you imagine a white person dressed as a Viking in Nairobi not being asked where they're from? Ngozi Fulani's online bio highlights her Caribbean and African heritage. She was born Marlene Headley, but changed her name to Ngozi Fulani, presumably because it reflects her heritage, and her charity supports women specifically of African and Caribbean heritage. How does she find out their heritage without asking the same horrifically racist question? By her own rules, Ngozi is the racist. When asked about her heritage, she said she was from London. So why was she dressed like she's in Coming to America then? Isn't that cultural appropriation? We can only imagine the uproar if a white Londoner dressed like that. Why are there double standards? And how does she have such a perfect recollection of the conversation? There are reports that she was wearing a recording device. Surely cast iron evidence that she used her invitation to the palace as a chance to find something, anything, as racist to boost her profile and harvest more donations. The race grifting industry exemplified by Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, Meghan Markle and Ngozi Fulani depends on a steady supply of racism to get outraged by. The trouble is, people just aren't as racist as they used to be. Supply isn't keeping up with demand when it comes to racism, so people have to scrape around to find racism where it wasn't intended. Microaggressions, facial expressions, innocent questions, anything can be filtered through the race grifter's prism to be seen as racist. So to avoid accidentally appearing racist, we have to twist ourselves in knots to avoid falling into the traps that are placed for us. But when everything we say is taken in bad faith, it's impossible. And when we fall into one of these traps, nobody helps us out for fear that they also get smeared as racist. Prince William's knee-jerk reaction was to throw his 83-year-old godmother under the bus. I get that being clumsily asked about "where are you really from" is annoying. Because of my Scottish accent, I get asked where I'm from every day, and it's always boring. I say Dumfries, and they say, "Oh, I don't know that place. I went to Edinburgh in 1987," or "My cousin Dave lives in Glasgow. Do you know him?" But people rarely ask this question with hateful intent. What a horrible thing to have criminalised innocent inquisitiveness about other people. We talk about wanting to ensure minorities in the UK feel accepted. When is that courtesy going to be extended to white British people? We're sneered at in the media, we're banished from adverts, we have to watch every word we speak in case it's perceived as racist. Job adverts openly exclude us. Critical race theory, which decrees that white people are inherently evil and racist, guides our institutions. Equality, diversity and inclusion departments in every organisation entrench anti-white discrimination. As the recent census results show, white British people are a minority in London, Birmingham and Manchester. Can we now be treated as equals now we're minorities too? If we're already at the stage where an 83-year-old woman is destroyed for having the temerity to ask someone who's dressed in full tribal garb about their heritage, where are we going to be in a decade? If you enjoyed this video, please share it with a relative who'll get annoyed by it, and consider becoming a Patreon. If you sign up to my Patreon for as little as £3 a month, you get early access to some videos, and you get Patreon-only content. There's a podcast I do with a criminal barrister, and there's also Patreon-only content from another podcast I do, which is called Clown World, where I go through all the craziest stories of the week. Thanks for listening. Bye. Bye-bye.